famously watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. He did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before he sent out that video message telling his supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that is encouraged peacefully and patriotically. I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I asked, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, that's the person I'm talking about, the border. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? What are they going to be prosecuted? What are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David. All over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it. One of those people going to be prosecuted. One of the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted. Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. One of those people going to be prosecuted.
Let me just ask you, you were the president, you were watching that unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on the day?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. But that wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard Corps soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. I want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about the U.S. president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear, on that point, Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath. If this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking, let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term. It was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was what bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the border control. Phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. Those people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue of both, because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short. Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
Yes, sir. We said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. There's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. They got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told that I got 63, which is what I got in 2016. You can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisper, we didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them.
The judge looked at it, and so they said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you do a special on it, I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you, we have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter. Because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying there.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the President there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's happened the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us, we won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. Now I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States. And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom work with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny that over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or
said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. He got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because I think we're going to do very well.
Turning out the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages were still being held Americans at the moment. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how. Saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians were dead. More than 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How did you do it?
Let's understand what we're done here. On October 7th, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump called you negotiating with Netanyahu and also announced in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza.
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people, and you ended up far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. Ukraine and Russia ended, if I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris says he hates Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that he's trying to divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un, and it is absolutely well known.
Stratton,
Spell it.
Stratton.
Okay, and how old are you, Doug?
I'm 66.
Where do you live?
I live here in Abington.
And are you retired?
I am retired, though I drive for a local transportation company.
What did you do when you worked full time?
I was a pastor.
Oh, a pastor.
Yes,
Where?
in Hatboro.
Okay. Are you a registered Democrat, Republican?
I am a registered voter.
Registered voter. Okay, so tell me, you were heading into the debate, I think already leaning towards Harris?
Without a doubt, yes.
Okay, so tell me your impressions what are your first impressions of this debate?
Basically, the mistruths of the former president have been enough to convince me that I want to continue and grow the support for Ms. Harris. Her manner of reaching out and presenting her policies has been quite clear. Mr. Trump has done nothing but go back to his same old 3 or 4 statements.
So did she exceed your expectations?
She has exceeded some of my expectations. She's been very clear with the policies that she'd like. I still would like a few more details on how are we going to pay for the $50,000 small business loan credits, but she's well on her way.
You were laughing at some of what he was saying, like literally laughing. What was
Yes,
that?
I was.
What was that? Was that involuntary or just like unbelievable? Like
It was a combination. It was a combination
A combination of what?
of an involuntary laugh and also just a mocking laugh. His statements have been so far off from reality and truth that the most likely response is laughter, as the rest of the world laughs at him.
Pennsylvania is a swing state, obviously.
Yes, it is.
So, do you think, and it's going to be, all the polls say it's very, very close here.
I understand it.
And she's got to appeal to those undecided voters.
Mm-hmm.
And so does he, quite frankly. They
Yes.
both do. So what does she have to do to get those undecided voters?
Well, I think what she has done, in my mind, should be sufficient to begin to convince them. The other side of that, I actually have a difficult time understanding how people are supporting Mr. Trump at this point. In listening to what I hear, personal defense, not caring about those who are around him, it just is, it leaves me kind of stunned. As a pastor, I can't understand how people who would claim the faith that I do could possibly provide him support.
Gotcha. Anything I didn't ask you that you might add?
I think I've probably dug my hole deep enough.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Because of the
All right.
air defense, the ammunition, the artillery,
Excuse me. I'm a reporter for the Associated Press. Okay. We'd love to talk to one of you about your impressions of this debate.
Well, okay.
Let me, yeah, you'll just look at me and not the light.
Okay.
What's your name?
Robert Dixon.
Robert?
Correct.
Dixon?
Correct.
Okay. And how old are you, Mr. Dixon?
How old am I?
Yeah.
76.
76.
Yes.
Are you from Abington?
No, I'm from right outside Mount Airy, Philadelphia. I'm a member of the church here. I'm a deacon at the church here.
Are you retired?
Semi. I'm an attorney, so we never retire.
You're an attorney? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a Democrat? Republican?
Democrat.
Okay. And who are you leaning towards? Do you know who you're going to vote?
Yeah. Harris. The other man's incompetent, and he's tried to take over the country. You can't do that. You can't have that. You know, you just have to stand up. Something you don't do.
Let's turn over here.
Okay.
Away from.
Oh, okay.
How do you think the debate has gone?
Well, listen, as I expected, I think Donald Trump has done a lot of lying. He had his own mind, you know, his own set of facts on everything, and he's sticking to them pretty much. Harris is trying to interact with him and putting out ideas and things of that nature, none of that he can address because he's just basically, you know, lying. He's talking about all the people that come into the country, you know, things are going down. We recovered from a horrible COVID pandemic, which he helped precipitate by his complete failure to handle it properly. And, you know, they just want to talk about it, so he just keeps repeating the same old lies. But if you lies big enough, the people, you know, he has a certain percentage of people that want to stick with it.
Do you think Harris is doing, what do you think of her performance?
I think she's doing fair, you know, I think she's doing real well. Be expected. And I think she's trying to hit the points, and she's sort of goading him into him keeping, you know, talking about himself. So
this is a very close election in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is a very important state. So do you think that she's doing enough to appeal to that sliver of undecided voter that she has to get?
I've been involved in election. I used to do a lot of electioneering when I was young. Pennsylvania went more Democratic than it has. It used to switch back and forth. He won. They really haven't won. Republicans really haven't won anything big in Pennsylvania since he won. So I think that we're in good stead with the people that we have in office now. They always vote for Bob Casey. They voted for Bob Casey when he and his father weren't running, but somebody else put their name up in Bob Casey years ago. That guy won because Pennsylvanians evidently like the name Bob Casey. So I think we're going to do well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Take care.
The alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
You talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan, 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind.
And the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier. Now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men in women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow, quiet place. He would have been sitting in Moscow. What's happening to him? Eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons.
Eat you for lunch.
Nuclear weapons.
Hey, that's it. No. Eat you for lunch.
Maybe using that. Maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that. Something we don't like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war. Because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin. And she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate as soon as they left to do the invasion.
You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it again. I gave her a bunch of last time. to meet with President Zelensky. I've now met with him 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader, upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. The first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up. I say, one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you, otherwise we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment to have honoring the soldiers who died and declared withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agree with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as a president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be a commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began to negotiate with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because of what they do with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved, and Abdullah is the head of the Taliban. He's still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdullah, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdullah. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than that, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind that. We wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment there. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump thinks to racing politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago, but she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something, I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read that she was not black. That she put out. And I'll say that. And then I read that she was black. And that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent in Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that. Want better than this. Want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country. And they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, there are other people, including Bill Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt the person, killed the person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. She's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad. And she can't get away with that.
Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible. One who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance, the kind of conversation I believe, David, that people really want tonight. As opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name calling. Let's turn the page.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
Come up with something, and we are working on things. We're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this: I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people, I have a lot of good people in this administration. We read about the bad ones, we have some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I will absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely supported over the last 4 years as Vice President private healthcare options, but what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time. When I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes, and thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it. Vice President Ross, in terms of where Donald Trump stands on it.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
Made a mistake. And number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't called...
View of politics. Yeah.
Are you guys decided what are you voting for?
So far, no. I feel like you don't really fit me still. It's complicated. I don't know. I feel like they're both not the right candidate for me, based on this debate and the past debates. I'm still undecided.
Do you think both candidates are staying on topic when it comes to the questions?
That's a funny question. I would say yes, but they're moving around from it. I wouldn't say direct, but they're trying to get their answers across. That's what I said.
One of the topics that we just heard was about gun ownership. And we heard Harris talking about that she owns a gun.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What's your reaction like?
I agree. I mean, there's the Second Amendment and stuff, right? And honestly, I'm fine with that, right? It's about the gun policy. It's not about the ownership of the gun. It's about what rights you have about owning a gun, the policy of getting it, right? So I don't think it affects me.
How do you like her answer? What do you think about her answer?
A little mixed. Again, they don't really go directly to the question, but I think I like her answer. I think she did well.
And then one of the questions they brought up was about clean energy, young voters, and climate change.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How do you feel about that?
Based on what they said, I feel like it's strong. But again, neither candidate I feel like engaged me in a way for me to agree with them. I do agree that we should spend more time on clean energy and develop more technologies to beat climate change. And yeah, what was the other question again? Like the other part?
The other thing they brought up was healthcare.
Healthcare.
Healthcare, that he didn't have a concrete plan at this moment. What do you make of that?
What about healthcare? Again, I didn't really do much research about it, but I think that they have both great plans. It depends on, if it goes right or well.
He said that Obamacare is too expensive for people. Do you think he was making a good case on that? That he has a plan so far for him, or what do you think?
Too expensive? I mean, again, I don't really know much information about it. I mean, I just got into politics, I would say, but I feel like if I learned more and understood more and focused and learned about it more, it would be beneficial.
Do you think the moderators are doing a good job tonight?
Sorry?
Do you think the moderators are doing a good job tonight?
I think so. With all this and all the interrupting, I feel like if I was a moderator, I couldn't handle it.
Just very last question. What else, from everything they've said tonight, what stands out?
What stands out? Honestly, for me, is about the crowd, right? And because I'm not used to this, right? I come from a different perspective, right? And the reason I'm here is to learn different, broaden my experience with politics. And honestly, I feel like debates are generally still the same throughout all 3 debates in the past years. I feel like they're all the same. And yeah, people trying to get their point across.
Final question. They're getting to final closing statements right now. Who do you think has performed so far?
I feel like, question-wise, I feel like Harris was more direct with her answers and questions, while Trump was trying to bounce around the question and not really direct. But so I feel like Harris did a better job than Trump.
I believe in what we can do together.
The answers tonight, the performance tonight, change the way you see them, or
Say the same. Again, they're both politicians, right? I don't feel, again, they're not really direct. There's always obviously lies between both candidates, and I feel like they did not change my opinion at all.
And what city you live in?
I live in Waxhaw, North Carolina.
No problem. Thank you. Tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I only have one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs. And all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it, because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like, we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just asked one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in a serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They called me. We're laughed at. When's it going to be released? What happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Gibbons.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
And we are here live on ABC with our post-debate comments on the debate for the economic portion with Afghanistan. They had it all, and it was historic. John Carl, fiery.
Wow. That was quite a debate. And I'm John Carl here with Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott. Our reporters across the news division have been updating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks, all that on ABCnews.com. But I would like to replay a moment at the very start of this debate, because it was quite a moment. The handshake.
Thank you.
I mean, first of all, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it.
They're adding these now.
It sought him out, put hands out, and also made the first one. So on the bottom line. All right.
And we'll try to get to a Discord. Clearly, what people are trying to work on it.
the candidate of the future. Donald Trump seemed angry within 4 minutes. I think we saw him going from very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at Trump, to angry, really yelling at some points, trying to make his point. I don't think we heard a lot of hands on either side of that.
I'm going to go on this side because people will be sitting on this side.
And what we had was
more common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force.
Not just angry, but also proud. And in contrast, Harris, who again, most of the world doesn't know, Harris looked like she belonged on the stage, looked like she is someone to get the service president.
And that is certainly how the campaign is feeling tonight. I can tell you the Harris campaign feels very good. They feel they had a very strong night, that she was determined, that she did look presidential, and that she was able to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, that was their goal going into this, that she would be able to put Donald Trump's record under a microscope. And they feel like the strongest example of that is that exchange on abortion, where she was able really to blame Donald Trump directly to his face. I mean, she said, what Trump put in women...
Check.
Perfect. Can we start by getting your full name?
Yeah. Ryan Hughes, Ryanhughes.
And tell me, how old are you and where do you live?
I am 26. I live in Charlotte.
Do you mind taking a small step back?
Yeah.
There you go. Tell me, what do you make of tonight's debate?
I thought it was definitely interesting. I don't know how much it's going to move the needle for anybody that still hasn't made a decision yet. I thought they both had good moments, both had bad moments. Particularly with Trump, I think that he got baited a couple times with some of her personal jabs, like his rally sizes, people leaving his rally early. She brought that up, I thought, very strategically during the abortion segment. During the immigration segment, knowing that that's kind of a weak spot for her. And so I would have liked to see him be a little bit more calm in those situations, not take that bait, and talk more about the policy, because I think that's a winning policy thing for him. But on the flip side, she had her own bad moments. I thought with the Israel portion, she still has not really been able to commit one way or the other with that. Neither has Biden. And I think it's important, when you have a war like that, you need to commit to one side or the other and not try to both sides it, because what you end up doing is alienating both of them.
And tell me about just yourself. Are you a Trump supporter? Are you voting for him, or where are you?
Yeah, I would consider myself a Trump voter. I'm definitely a Republican first, rather than a Trump supporter first. But I was satisfied with his job during his first term. I thought he was going to easily win re-election until COVID came along. That kind of changed the whole entire landscape of the world, really. But I'm a political science major. I'm very into politics. I've lived in D.C. for a while, worked up there in Congress. So, I've seen firsthand how government can operate. And I think Trump is a good leader to have. He said it during the debate. He's an open book. Like, you never have to really guess what he's thinking. That's kind of a double-edged sword, because sometimes it gets him in trouble. But I'd rather have that as my leader than somebody where I'm not sure what they're standing on in certain issues. With him, there's no question of where he stands on every issue.
Do you think both candidates stayed on topic, or do you think maybe...
I think they both, like I said, they both kind of had their moments. I think she probably stayed on topic a little bit better than him. He, like I said, took the bait with the rally size comments. But, you know, it wasn't super off script or super out of left field in a lot of the things. So I think they both did a fairly good job of that. But I'll give her credit for that. She probably did stay on topic more than he did.
As far as the moderators, how do you think they did tonight?
I thought they were fairly good. They started to kind of fact check just him, I noticed. They didn't really do that to her, although she had some kind of blatant lies. But, you know, overall, I think they did well. It was interesting with the muting, because I had heard before that as soon as they were done speaking, the microphones could be muted, like the CNN debate, but that sort of seemed to not be the case, where they kind of were able to bargain with the moderators, like, oh, well, I just need to reply to that real fast, just give me 1 minute, and they caved in each time, which I'm fine with. They cave in each time because it gives both the candidates chances. So overall, you know, they probably got a B from me if I had to grade them on an A to F scale. I think they did fine. They could have been a little better, but nothing groundbreaking.
They kind of tied climate change with young voters. Tell me about that. How do you feel about that?
I think climate change is real. I think, you know, anybody that's denying it at this point just isn't looking at the facts. Where I kind of differ is I don't think America is as responsible in the climate problem as Kamala might think we are. I think when you look at other countries, such as China, who has triple our population and virtually no regulations on the environment, that's where a lot of the climate issue is coming from. It's a worldwide issue. It's not an American issue. So, you know, as far as what we do here, you know, we do have a lot of regulations, especially compared to the other major powers in the world, like China, like Russia. You know, we can only do so much as 300, 400 million people when you have countries like China and India who have, you know, combined over 2 billion people. You know, it's difficult for us to fix everything.
One of the last topics that they talked about was gun ownership. And Vice President Harris talked about having also tell me about that.
I was a little surprised she said that. Yeah, I was a little surprised.
Can you tell me, like, you just have full sentence of what you're talking about? You were surprised about?
I was surprised that she said she had a gun. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but, you know, I'll take her for her word. Look, she's an American citizen. I think that every American citizen should have a gun for personal protection. I think that it's one of the great things about our country is that we're allowed to be able to defend ourselves. And yeah, you know, I was surprised by the angle she took on that, considering, you know, a lot of times Democrats will try to, if you bring up the gun debate, they'll bring up, you know, school shootings, that stuff, banning automatic rifles. So yeah, it was an interesting approach by her. I thought she kind of actually tried to sway a little bit farther to the right, which is to be kind of expected in a general election. You want to pick up some middle ground voters. But yeah, her gun comment and then the comment about Israel, I thought was not what I expected from her. I expected her to remain on the left side of those issues, and you know, she seems to take on a more centrist or even Republican approach.
Did anything stood out to you regarding their body language? I mean, those exchanges that they had tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Trump had the comment of, you know, don't speak while I'm talking or whatever, obviously playing on her past comments in her debate with Pence. You know, I thought that they both looked confident. They both looked good. I think her voice was a little shaky at the beginning. She came out a little bit nervous, but she found her groove after a few questions. Trump's done this, you know, a million times. He always kind of projects that confidence. I didn't think he had any issues with that. Overall, they both look good.
Did Harris best Trump at any point make more sense or anything?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think she was able to successfully get him off topic, specifically talking about the immigration stuff. Like I said, that's a kind of the slam dunk for the Republicans, as the abortion is a slam dunk for the Democrats. And, you know, in the last debate, Trump did a great job of getting Biden off the topic of abortion. And tonight she did a good job of getting him off the topic of immigration with the crowd size comment. I thought she did really well there. And I mean, yeah, she had other moments. Like, you know, I don't think, I agree with her that we don't have as many differences as maybe the media or social media will make us think. I'm of the belief that, you know, there's 90% of the country falls somewhere in the middle, 5% is going to fall on the far right, 5% is going to fall on the far left. The problem is that with social media, those 5% on each side are the loudest voices on those platforms. So it's easy to look at, you know, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and see, okay, like, you know, we're divisive, we all hate each other. But in reality, you go out into the real world, it's not like that at all.
Do you feel like you witnessed history tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it was significant, you know, it's, this was the first real debate, I guess you can say, because the Biden debate's obviously, you know, something way in the past. Yeah, it was interesting. I was very surprised that they shook hands at the beginning. That shocked me. I even joked, I'm like, I guarantee they don't do that. But, you know, she approached him. I thought that was a good move by her to approach him, to shake hands. And it was obviously a good move by her to not leave her, good move by him to not leave her hanging. So, yeah, you know, I mean, it felt significant. I feel like the final debate, though, will always be the most significant debate. That's going to be when everybody's truly paying attention. Right now, you know, I'd be interested to see what the ratings were. But, you know, as we get closer to the election and sort of more, you know, average people that aren't into politics as I am, pay attention. You know, we have October debates. Those, I think, will carry a little bit more weight. But, yeah, I mean, it was cool to see. Obviously, one of the great things about America is that we come together and we can debate. I thought that they actually did a pretty good job of not launching personal attacks tonight. They did their best to kind of stay away from that, especially Trump. He gets himself in a lot of trouble with that. It can make him look bitter. So, you know, I think, yeah, they did a good job, but I'll be interested to see how the next two go.
And just be here in North Carolina, consider a swing state.
Yes.
What do you make of the young voters and the difference they can make for this upcoming election?
Yeah, I mean, young voters, obviously Gen Z is a massive generation. And as the older voters start to pass away, yeah, you know, that kind of new reign comes in. Yeah, North Carolina is a very unique state. In the fact that we've elected a Democrat governor in the past two elections, but also voted for Trump in the past two elections. It's very unique in that way that we are truly a purple state when you look at that. So I'm excited to live in a state that actually has a voice in the election. You know, it's great to be in a place that you're going to have people from all walks of life. So, you know, obviously if you're out in Nashville, it's going to be a little bit more liberal versus if you are, you know, out more in the country. But yeah, I think, you know, young people, the whole entire knock on young people forever has been that they can be into politics, but they don't actually go to the polls and vote. So I think getting people out to vote is very important. I'll be interested to see, obviously Gen Z is, like I said, a massive population that can now vote, most of them. So it'll be interesting to see the actual pure numbers that come out in November. But I hope that a lot of young people vote. I like, you know, I'm a young person. I like to see other young people involved in politics, whether on my team or not. That doesn't really matter to me. You know, I just want to see people care about the country, care about the future of the country.
Just lastly, what are those issues that you care more most that kind of you think affect you here locally?
Well, I think, you know, if you look at the economy, that's the biggest thing. You know, I was renting an apartment when Trump was in office, renting an apartment when Biden and Kamala were in office. The rent prices have skyrocketed. That to me is something that matters a lot. That's something like, you know, as somebody starting out in a career, I'm not sitting on millions of dollars where that doesn't matter to me. You know, rent prices matter to me a lot. Cost of food, cost of, you know, gasoline, all those things matter a lot to me because that's something that I'm daily having to deal with. So for me, the number one thing is the economy. I feel like, obviously, you know, with COVID, that kind of swayed towards the end of Trump's presidency. But I thought during Trump's presidency, before that happened, the economy was booming. I was able to afford my rent. I was not working crazy hours at a job or anything like that. And I was still able to go out with friends, you know, enjoy my personal life. With her and Biden, obviously, you know, inflation's very real. I would have liked to see him kind of push her a little bit more on how exactly her policies on the economy would differ from Biden's. I thought that he probably could have gotten something good out of that if he did that because thus far her policies are virtually the same as President Biden's, and that obviously has not worked to this point. So that's a big thing for me. And then being on a college campus, I like to see the First Amendment upheld in all scenarios. You know, to me, without the First Amendment, we don't have a country. Freedom of speech is the most important thing, and censorship, anything like that, is extremely problematic. Being on social media, as much as I am, you know, it's concerning when I hear Zuckerberg talk about, oh, yeah, you know, actually we did cover stories for the Biden campaign. We did cover stories regarding COVID. You know, that stuff, that has no place in America. That's not what our country is for. You know, we want a free and fair press, and I really think that we lack that. So that's a major concern for me as well. Thank you.
Again, you're 26?
Yeah.
You live in Charlotte?
Yes.
And what is your major again?
I was poli-sci.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
significantly shorter than Ryan.
What's that?
I'm shorter than Ryan, so.
Just a little bit. Not that much.
Yeah,
Let me get this lights a little more.
what's that?
Increase the lights for a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, whatever you need to do. We're just doing it for the. Can you just wait a few minutes and we help carry stuff out?
And do you mind taking a small step forward? Right there. Perfect.
Yeah, I got a MAGA hat, but I chose not to wear that.
Where's Zach? Is Zach still on campus?
Zach, I have no idea.
That dude unapologetically wore everything he wanted.
Yeah, he would come in and like shrunk your head to toe.
Tell me your full name, spell it out.
Brian Major, B-R-I-A-N-M-A-J-O-R.
How do you switch this out? Can you do it again?
Yeah, Brian Major, B-R-I-A-N-M-A-J-O-R.
And what is your major and how old are you?
I'm 30 years old. My major is interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in gerontology and a minor in biology.
And your college?
College, UNC Charlotte.
We have producers to work on. Tell me, what are your reactions about tonight's debate?
So overall, I thought it went well. I think Trump he had some good points. I also think he got caught up in his ego. I think he kept focused on stuff in 2020 that wasn't necessary. That's in the past, leave it in the past. But overall, it went kind of how I expected. I wish he would have done some more things talking about Harris being the sitting vice president. So why all these policies she's talking about, why is she not doing them right now? But overall, it's about what I expected.
What are some of those back and forths that you noticed that maybe stood out to you tonight?
I'm sorry, was that again?
Some of those back and forths that they had tonight.
They had, like I said, I think they focused on things that were silly. I think Trump, like I said, got caught up in his past as president, which is just a waste of his time. He should focus more of this stuff on Harris. It's all on her right now. She's the sitting vice president. So all these policies he's talking about, why is she not doing them right now? So back and forth. But overall, I think it was all right.
In which areas do you feel like Trump did good tonight?
Did well in? Let's see. I'm glad he talked about the abortion stuff. He talked about putting it back, Roe v. Wade back to the states instead of keeping it a federal issue. He made a good point that he's not making it a federal issue. He's keeping it at the state level. I'm glad he's doing that. It kind of takes some of the wind out of their sails. And then also he's distancing himself from Project 2025. They kept saying he's part of it. He's saying he's not. So I like that he's talked about that.
How do you feel about the moderators tonight and just the overall debate, how it was conducted?
I thought it was well. I didn't detect any super biases in any way or anything like that. I thought they did an okay job. I mean, there are questions I would have liked to have them ask, but I'm not the moderator, so yeah.
Was there any points where you maybe found it frustrating, maybe angry, or just laughed at some of the points that were made tonight? Either candidate.
For what?
Just either candidate.
The biggest thing I think my biggest frustration with Trump was that he was focusing on stuff that wasn't relevant to time. He should keep the pressure on Harris, but he kept bringing up stuff from his past, which is not needed. It's 4 years ago. We all know what happened. Move forward.
And just tell me about yourself. Are you a longtime Trump supporter? Are you a Republican?
Yeah, I'm a Republican. Like I said, I agree with Ryan. I wouldn't say I don't ride and die with Trump. I'm a party first Republican. Trump was not my first candidate, but I'm definitely going to back him. Yeah, so I'm not hardcore Trump either way. I'll support him for the election, but yeah, I'm a Republican though.
Somebody told me the same thing too. Somebody also supported somebody else, and then another supporting Trump. Who was the person that supported you?
I was initially for a Ron DeSantis. I would have loved a Ron DeSantis Nikki Haley team. I think they were both good, but they both fizzled out pretty quickly. Nikki Haley lasted longer than Ron DeSantis, obviously, but those would have been the two I probably would have gone over Trump. Not that I was disappointed with Trump, but I just think we know what Trump has, and I didn't think he was going to be a strong candidate. He's done better than I thought he would, so I'll give him that. But I would have initially gone with a DeSantis-Haley team.
And then just issues that affect you the most here locally. There's a lot of issues that we hear nationally, but locally, what are those issues that you care most about?
I think like most people, it's going to be the economy. Things are expensive. You know, being in college, you know, kind of a fixed income, stuff like that. A lot of students work jobs. Most students I talk to, who, so I'm 30, but most of the students here are, you know, 18 to 20, 22, and they're still working, you know, full time to kind of make ends meet, also help pay for school and have some money to spend. So I think the economy is definitely a hard one. I mean, we have professors talk about our job, you know, your job's a full-time student, but I think in this day and age, you can't just be a full-time student. You have to work unless you're fortunate enough to have a full ride or enough scholarships, stuff like that. So probably locally the economy.
And then climate change was brought up. It was tied to young voters. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think I think for climate change, if you want to talk about it, you can't seriously have a conversation about climate change unless you bring up nuclear as a viable means. And Trump said he was for, you know, he's for solar, stuff like that. But if you want a viable long-term means of clean renewable energy, you're going to have a serious conversation about nuclear power on a large scale across the country and increase that industry.
I noticed some people react when Harris admitted that she owns a gun. What do you make of that?
Okay, she owns a gun, but I mean, Tim Walz definitely is not pro-gun. He talked about carrying weapons of war and they should not be allowed. I mean, I was in the military. We had the same guns. I never went to a combat zone. I was on a submarine. But I mean, we were trained on a 9mm. We had the M16, stuff like that. So same guns, but I mean, I still believe everyone has a right to carry, you know, their AR and their handguns. And does she have a gun? Maybe, I don't know. But that's her right. If she wants to have a gun, she can. But I'm against them imposing anyone else's right not to carry a gun.
And just lastly, do you feel like this debate did much for either candidate or?
No, I don't think it did. Maybe a few people, but I got a text earlier, someone showing the polls. There really wasn't much of a change. I don't think you'll see much. Maybe a little bit here and there, but I think it's going to bounce around back and forth until we get closer to the election. So honestly, I don't think it did that much of a difference.
And just being part of this group here, young voters coming out to engage and watch this debate, what's the importance of the young voter in this coming election?
Well, like anything, young voters are, you know, they're the future. All these policies we're talking about, you know, they generally have downstream effects. Don't really see the full effect of it until, you know, 5, 6, 10 years after the fact. So they're the ones that are going to reap the benefits of it now. You can talk about things like, what is it called? Loan repayments for students. That doesn't affect students right now, but obviously that'll affect them in the future. So, you know, if they want that, I'm against it, but, you know, that's something that will affect voters now. And voters who were in college years ago are the ones who are, you know, will potentially reap the benefits of these policies they're talking about. So it's just, what they vote now is what's going to affect them in the future. So.
Was there a topic that was maybe not brought up tonight, or maybe you not get a clear answer from about what you want to hear?
I would have liked to hear more about their plans for the economy. I think we had a word cloud up earlier, and the biggest thing we're talking about was the economy. I think across the aisle, everyone agrees the economy is crap. Harris kept saying she had a plan. I would have loved to see what the plan is. Like you said, she's the sitting president. If you have a plan, why not do it right now? And then, you know, I will see what Trump's plan was. But we kind of know how Trump's economy was. We see what he did back then. I know he lowered the corporate tax rate significantly, but we were above Europe, and he dropped it down to lower levels. So I would like to hear both sides talk about it more. So, yeah.
Is there anything else? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Again, you live here in Charlotte?
Huntersville. I live in Huntersville.
Huntersville?
Yeah.
And your age again?
30.
And your title for the group?
Vice President.
Can you tell me the full name of the group and the title for this group?
Yeah, Vice President of the UNC Charlotte College Republicans.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to take just 1 minute to wrap up.
Yeah, do you want any, chips or anything? Or
Yeah, do you want food?
Cookies?
Oh, no, I'm good.
You sure?
I'm good. I'm going to go home and...
His charismatic approach, what he thinks is charismatic, while Kamala Harris is more focused on research, facts, policies, critique, analysis.
And so, with that said, did you watch the Trump-Biden debate? And if so, how do you think this one compared to that one?
I watched a little bit of the Trump-Biden debate, to be honest. I think the Harris-Trump debate was actually more enjoyable to watch, to be honest. I think because of Kamala Harris, because of the way she presented herself as a public speaker, as someone who has a lot of knowledge, has a lot of facts. There are certain things that I necessarily don't agree with her, certain policies, specifically foreign policies, such as Israel-Hamas war, what's happening in Palestine, the way she addresses them. I don't expect Kamala Harris to have the full critical, analytical, or radical knowledge about that issue, but at least I enjoyed, watching her present herself, keeping her poise, making sure she addresses Trump the way he attacks her. I think she shows us how a public speaker or how a debater does a really good job in keeping themselves, and protecting themselves while on stage. As a public speaker myself and as an educator, I thought that was very enjoyable and very practical. It's definitely a debate I would show to my students. It's definitely a debate I would tell my students to watch and analyze public speaking, debate on live television, how it looks like, also fact-checking. I thought that was definitely a very good and enjoyable show to watch, yeah.
And so kind of to go back to one of your earlier points about, you don't necessarily agree with Harris's foreign policy.
Mhm.
One thing that she said today that she has said in the past is making our military the most lethal. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, let's be very clear, even regardless of Harris's opinion on that, military force is something that is very important to the United States government. It's not an opinion, it's not a fact, it's not a perspective. It's not an opinion, it's not a perspective, it's a fact. Military reform, military force is something that is very important, right? And I think the American government hones in on military force so much. There's a lot of investment in military force and law enforcement. So that's something that's kind of unavoidable. And I think no matter who the president is, and if they want to get that seat, they're going to have to be in favor of military force. This is just an analysis, but a factual analysis. So a lot of people may not get, for example, I'm anti-war. I don't believe that, investing too much in military force can be beneficial for communities. There should be military training. There should be military education. There should be law enforcement education. There should be consultation and reform of understanding within law enforcement entities such as police departments, the military, and everything. Education is important, but I feel like the government is focused more on investing billions and billions of dollars in weapons. So when I hear lethal power and weapon or terms like that, it doesn't sit too well with me, right? Because it makes me think, well, are we investing in wars or are we investing in protecting ourselves from wars? So the lines tend to be a little bit blurred. So I'm not quite too sure how to feel about it, I understand where the president is coming from, but, I hope we can focus more on education. I hope we can focus more on educating our military forces on how to protect rather than attack, maybe. And that's for any country and any government around the world. If we really want to have a sense of peace. But again, it all goes back to the idea of communities protection. So when we talk about lethal weapons or lethal military force, how do communities of color or communities of the marginalized global majority feel about the term like that? So that's just my only critique about it. It's more than whether I agree or disagree. It's more of criticizing it and more how do I consult maybe the president to look more into it from an educational and civic engagement perspective.
And then there were a lot of issues important to you that we didn't touch on, but were there any moments that did stand out to you? Any moments?
Absolutely.
Points that did stand out to you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, it all goes back to, I think Kamala Harris really knows and understands how to address her audience very well. She really understands that, there is an American dream and there is an American identity and she believes in the idea of uniting people together, and she cares for the people from an American civil perspective at least. And I thought that was very well presented. I thought that was great. I thought there was a lot of defense towards migrants. You know, when Donald Trump brought up the idea of, you know, immigrants, specifically it was Haitians, you know, saying that Haitians are eating cats and dogs in Ohio, which personally for me is something as a personal attack, because I don't agree, I don't appreciate someone putting immigrants under that idea of them being demonized. I thought she responded very well and defended immigrant identities and immigrant narratives and understanding that immigrants are humans and should not be demonized. So that's something that I really appreciated about her, because it's something that a lot of migrants need. I would say also maybe reframe the term immigrants to more expats, to understand more that they're more expats. No matter where they're coming from, whether Central America, the Caribbean, Middle Eastern, Arab countries, you know, or Southeast Asian countries, humanizing immigrants instead of looking at them as demons. And I think Donald Trump did that. He demonized them, and she kind of defended the narrative that they are human and they should not be demonized. So that's something that I really appreciated from her end.
Well, those are all the questions that I have for you, but is there anything else you'd like to add or anything else you'd like to say?
I just think that, you know, people, viewers, voters should critically analyze all the time, regardless of who they're voting for. Critical analysis, education, being radical is very important. Understanding facts, understanding the fact that if you are voting for a president, you can still criticize their policies and yet still vote for them because you feel they're a better choice. I feel like any president or any public figure should be criticized in terms of their policies, but at the same time not attacking their identities, especially if their identities is a black woman or a person from the global majority. You know, it's different when you're criticizing a person such as Donald Trump, who is, you know, a white cisgender male, for example, and who has upheld power all of his life. That's a little bit different. So I'm coming at it from a civic engagement and DI perspective, is that we can criticize policies. We can criticize certain things that public figures, political governmental figures are imposing, at the same time while giving them our support or not supporting them. And having critical discourse and not attacking each other as citizens, but rather having critical conversation and respecting all the point of views, as long as the point of views are not disrespectful, and as long as the point of views are not rooted in racism, and as long as they're not rooted in pro-war thinking, you know, or pro-genocide thinking, as long as the opinions are radical, acceptable, have a sense of like diplomacy, but as long as they're not rooted in hate or anti-community. Was that good? Was that too much? Was that a lot? Yes? Yes? I felt like I rambled too much, but you know, take and put what you want out of it, please.
Actually, while you were talking, I was thinking, I'm like, I'm gonna have to give him for another interview.
Like, listen, this guy is a little bit... Oh Lord, no, no.